Hey, it's Joe Amoia, founder and creator of the GPSforlove.com. Have you ever been involved with a guy where 6 months or 6 years later, you realize he wasn't the guy that you thought he was? And you look back and you thought that you did everything right in the beginning. Well, if so, I want you to pay close attention because I've got a video today that's going to really help you to see the things that you could possibly do better to make sure that this never happens again. So I recently received an email from Debbie, one of the members of our GPS for Love community. And this was in response to our last blog, which is when should you talk about your past? And here's Debbie's email. And it says, spot on again, Joe, but honestly, the problem is at the start of the relationship, some people may not want you to know about their true past. See, we all want to put on our best face when we meet someone. I had asked all the right questions. He told me he'd been married 16 years, been divorced for 8, and had a 4-year relationship that didn't work out, and he had been single for a year. To me, I heard that he wasn't scared of commitment, that he was loyal, and that he likes long-term relationships. So imagine my shock when 6 months into our relationship, I find out that there were 2 ex-wives, 2 previous fiancés, and he'd only been gone from the last one for 4 weeks when he met me. His ex left him. He was still seeing her for coffee and having regular chats. It was obvious that he wasn't over her. I had been a rebound, and I had no clue at all. I was so far in love with this man that I foolishly stayed. It took 9 months of hell to have the ex-fiancé removed from our lives entirely, only to be replaced with 18 months of nonstop talk about the ex-wife who took his kids to another state. After 3.5 years together and after 5 sessions of couple counseling, he has been diagnosed as commitment phobic. All the promises of moving in and marriage over 3 years were totally untrue and were never going to happen. So Joe, even if you think you have all the facts of the past at the beginning, I have found that the guys you need to be worried about rarely or ever tell you about their true past. See, a commitment phobic guy will never tell a woman the truth. He would never get a date with a decent woman if he did. The same goes for any guys with big issues or personality problems. So yes, ask the questions about the past, but don't expect everything you hear to be true or the full story. My suggestion is staying a bit emotionally detached for at least 6 months, because the truth usually comes out within that time and you save yourself a lot of heartbreak. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge Debbie for sharing this because this is so vital, and I know she's not the only one out there. This happens to all of us. And yes, ladies, it even happens to us guys. And you know my story. This is exactly what happened. I invested 3 years with someone, ultimately realized that they weren't who I thought they were. And they weren't who they were telling me they were. They were who they were. So I'm going to break this email down, and I'm going to give you some insights and tips that will help you to make sure this never happens to you again. So the first one is Debbie talks about her shock when 6 months into a relationship, she realizes that he had 2 exes, 2 fiancés, and he'd only been single for 4 weeks. So here's my truth. There's nothing that any human being in this world will ever do that will shock me. At this point in the game, after my 48 years of being on the planet, I've seen so much stuff that it may disappoint me, it may frustrate me, but it will never shock me because people do what they do for their reasons. So one of the things that will help you get over this is to not be shocked and just understand like, wow, didn't see that coming. But you know what? I'm glad I see it now, because the good news is, Debbie, is that you didn't have to marry this guy. You didn't have to have kids. You didn't have to waste decades of your life. And I know that sucks. I know it may not have been what you wanted it to be, but I believe that something better is is in store for you down the road, and you'll see this as a giant learning experience. So that's the first point. The second is where Debbie says that the ones you need to be worried about rarely or ever tell you about their past. I agree 100%. And you need to use that for your own benefit. You need to understand that guys lie. Guys misrepresent themselves. Guys hold back. And the truth is that even if they tell you what they want to hear, sooner or later, you're going to find out. It's going to reveal itself. It has to. You can be an Academy Award winning actor, but you can't cover it up. You can't run from it. There are always, always, always red flags. And we go back to Debbie's example, not to make her wrong, but to learn from it, where she started finding out about his ex-wives, about his ex-fiancés, about the kids. He started seeing that he was going to have coffee with his ex, and he had trouble getting away from her, that he was still hung up on his ex-wife who was taking his kids, that there was a lot of emotional stuff there. Okay, this is exactly what I talk about in my free report, in my special report, the 5 emotionally unattached men. You know, if you haven't seen that, you might want to grab a copy, because that's what this guy's a coward. He's an avoider. Okay, not to judge him that he's bad, but that's what he's doing. He's emotionally unavailable. And these are the guys that are out there. These are guys that make you upset, but you got to be able to recognize and see these guys. So I agree with Debbie 100%. They're not going to tell you that. So that's where you have to sit back. That's where you have to learn how to date them and look for these red flags, because they are going to appear. And they're not going to appear in the first 3 weeks, the first 3 months. They will for some guys, but some guys, because they're really good at hiding it, and more importantly, because our emotions take over, the oxytocin and the estrogen is at sky-high levels, that you're in la-la land and you're not looking for it. So the key is you got to be able to look for it, not from a jaded person, but as simply a person as, I know this stuff happens. I know it's out there. And if you do that, your life's going to be so much easier. And the last thing Debbie talked about is her suggestion of staying a bit emotionally attached for at least 6 months. Well, I agree and disagree with that, because the problem is we're human beings. We do everything based on our emotions. So saying you can be emotionally detached is like saying you want to stay alive without breathing air and drinking water and eating food. Doesn't happen. Okay, that's not how you do it. The key is you have to learn how to manage your emotions. You can't avoid your emotions. You can't stay emotionally detached. You have to learn to manage your emotions, to not jump in so quick, to not fall in love so easily just because everything appears to be wonderful in the beginning. So I'm going to give you some guidelines, some tips that are going to help you to make sure this never happens to you. So the first one is, when these things do happen, you have to see it as a learning experience, an expensive learning experience. See, we've all gone through that. And I see the difference between people who go on and have great relationships from those who don't, is they sit back and they see it as that expensive learning lesson. Because I believe nothing happens to you, it always happens for you. And so experiences like this are designed in your journey to help you see what you need to learn, to do things different, to do things better. So step number 1 is you need to see it as an expensive learning lesson. The second part is you need to take responsibility for your part. You know, I call this mirror time. You need to take a good look in the mirror and say, okay, what role did I play in this? And in this case, it's kind of, yeah, the red flags were there, okay? It showed me that he wasn't being honest. It showed me that he was holding back. It was showing me that he was being emotionally unavailable. So why did I stay? And again, this isn't to point fingers at Debbie or anybody else, because I did the same exact thing. I stayed with someone for 3 years who was making my life miserable, whose actions were contradicting her words consistently. And so that's where you have to look and go, okay, well, why did I stay? And I did my work and I realized why I stayed. I stayed for the wrong reasons. So by taking that mirror time and really taking a good look at yourself, you're going to see what role you played in this not working out. And the third step is to know that this happens, okay? I remember when I was dating and I was like, okay, I see how this works. There are people who say and do all the right things, who tell you all the right things, but then who don't show you consistently. So I remember when I was dating and I met my wife, I was kind of sitting back going, all right, when's this shit going to hit the fan? Okay, this looks too good to be true. She's saying and doing all the right things. And from my experience, that it's going to show up because in my experience prior to, it always did show up. But then the longer I dated her, the more I was with her, the more I realized that, you know what? It's not showing up. How cool is this? This is actually the woman that I've been looking for. And when you do it that way, when you sit back, when you learn to manage your emotions and not jump into things, you're going to see things for exactly what they are. And you will see that the wrong guy, all the stuff will start emerging, all the skeletons in the closet, all the red flags will start popping up, or you'll see that, you know what? There's none of that. This is easy. There's no games. There's no drama. I feel good. I'm happy and I'm fulfilled consistently. So this must be the person that I'm supposed to be with. So when you do that and you learn to date and not jump into things, and keep your eyes and ears open, knowing and looking for those things to pop up. And if they do, recognizing and running and getting away, or seeing that they're not popping up and realizing that, hey, you know what? This is what I've ultimately been looking for. So I know I've thrown a lot at you today, but again, this is so important. If you really want to make sure this doesn't happen for you, I really suggest that you watch this video and you really understand what we're saying today, because this is a total game changer. So what I'd like you to do now is actually take some mirror time. Go back, look at a relationship in the past where this has happened to you, and follow these 3 guidelines. See what you can learn from it. See what role you played in it. Did you make excuses? Did you ignore? Did you buy into the BS? Whatever it may be. Or did you stay because you were afraid you might not find somebody else? Whatever it may be. Again, there's no judgment. This is how we learn. And the third is to see if you dated long enough. And when you do that, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to share what you've learned, your aha, but more importantly, so that the other members of the GPS for Love community can learn from your mistakes. Because I believe a smart person learns from their mistakes, and an intelligent person learns from the mistake of others. The reason why I created GPS for Love is I want you to learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of others, because it doesn't have to be that difficult. As always, it's an honor and privilege. I'll see you next time. Much love.